Okay, so this video is going to show how to do bubbles in Flash really quickly. The first thing we're going to do is open up a new Flash file. We're going to save it as bubbles. I'm going to start by creating a symbol so that all the bubbles, everything that I do with the bubbles is going to be contained within one symbol. So to start with a symbol from scratch, from nothing, I'm just going to start with something. So I just made an X, it could be a scribble, whatever you want. I'm going to select everything on there and hit F8 to create a new symbol. I'm going to call it bubbles all. Make sure that it's a graphic and hit OK. Now I have my symbol of the bubbles. I'm going to label this as well, bubbles all. Now within this symbol, I'm going to click on it to select it and double click to edit it in place. And you have to double click right on a drawn part of it to be able to go in. Now that I'm inside the symbol, so I can see here scene 1, I'm in bubble all. I'm just going to extend the timeline out by hitting F5. And I'm actually going to get rid of this drawing. So I've started with a blank slate and I'm going to create a bubble. Now I'm going to use just a bubble with no lines, and I'll make it a little bit see-through. Okay, so we got a bubble there, a little bit hard to see. Let's make a nice pink bubble instead. And I'll make add a little shine to it as well. So let's see here, just a lighter value of pink. There we go. Nice little shine. However you want to draw your bubble. Now, this first bubble that I've created, I'm going to turn it into a symbol. So I'm going to hit F8 and I'm going to say bubble 1. Now that this bubble is a symbol, I want to make it go up and kind of disappear. We'll do quick bubbles. We won't do popping or exploding. If you wanted to go into that, I can also give you some materials to animate that at the end, a little pop. But what we're going to do is we're going to start out with naming this, call it bubble 1, and we're going to add a motion guide to it. So we're going to go down here, and it's not a regular guide, we're going to add a classic motion guide. And what happens is it's going to create another layer over top. So unlike the regular guides that show you a little T-square, this is going to show you a little animated dots going to kind of a ball within a square. So this guide layer, whatever we put on here, is going to be the guide for the bubble, and as well it's not going to be exported when you export it to a movie, so you won't be able to see that layer. So I'm going to use the line tool, and I'm going to use a smooth line. I'm going to set this so I can see through it, and what we want to do is well, I can actually just move this out of the way to start with and just create a path. So on this guided layer, we're going to create what's called a motion path for our bubble to follow. And I'm going to use something, a color that you can see. Doesn't matter what color the path is. You can choose a color that you know you're not going to use anywhere else, so that you can really know that it's not going to be seen in the video afterwards. Okay, so once we have our line drawn, I'm going to take my bubble and unlock this layer. I'm going to take the bubble and I'm going to place it so that it links up. And if you have your snap on, the snap to objects, a little magnet over here on the side, it'll go straight and snap right onto the end, so no problem. Get close to it and it'll snap on. Now, I'll have this starting here, and what I want to do is set another keyframe. at the end, and I'm going to move it to the end of the line here. Now, maybe I want my bubble to get bigger as it goes. What we're going to do is, once we have the two keys set, I'm going to create a classic tween and make sure that it's set to classic. We don't want to use motion or shape. Classic tween. And there we go, we have it animated. Nice and slow. So it's taking a little while. I think that's probably a good speed to have our bubbles go up. If you want it to be slower, then you just extend the timeline and it'll go up a little bit slowly. Okay, now the only thing that happened when I did that, it disconnected the guide layer from the bubble layer, and that's okay. So you can see that now it's just a regular guided layer, which means it's not going to be seen because it's a T-square. To reattach it, all I have to do is click on the bubble layer and put it close to the guide layer, holding the cursor down, and then it'll attach back on, and now it should work again. There we go. And that's something that can happen when you move. Anything hit something accidentally, so it's good to know to be able to put it back. Okay, so now we get our bubble moving. If you want it to be faster bubbles, like boiling kind of bubbles, same thing again. We'll move it up. There we go. So we get kind of a quick bubble going. Once it gets to the top, you can do one of two things. We could make it pop. Let's try doing that. So we'll make it pop. I've created just a blank keyframe using F7. And then we want to go down here and use the onion skinning because we want to make sure that we're going to see what we've done on previous layers before. So by extending this out along the timeline, we can see as many different keys back as you want. I just need to see the last one really, so I can put that there. And let's see. Let's use that same pink. So we'll start out with a couple of dots maybe. So I'm just going to do two little, oh, it's getting kind of hard to see, that's okay. Two little pops and then a blank, and let's see if this looks like it pops. Something else to this. I can copy this frame, so I'm Control-Alt-C will copy it, Control-Alt-V to paste, and I'm just going to make it get a little slightly bigger at the end here. Now, because it's attached to this guide, it's not letting me kind of move it around the way that I want. So once I've done with the guide, I can actually get rid of it. So it only needs to be guided for as long as the animation is happening. After that, I want to make this a little bit bigger so that it gets slightly, I'm going to take this snap. So if you're finding that you can't grab stuff and move it in a slight way, it's probably because the snap is on. So you can take that off and then it'll move it. There we go. Make your own sound effects. Okay. Once you have one done, okay, the great part about it is we can copy all of this, or we could put all of this within another symbol and then just keep copying the symbols, which would probably be the easiest thing to do. So we'll start again with, let's increase the density here. We'll just create another symbol, and we'll call it bubble anim. Okay, we can select all of these frames, or you can shift select both layers, Control-Alt-C to copy them, and then I'm going to paste them first just to be on the safe side. We're going to edit in here, I'm going to paste them in place, so Control-Alt-V. There they are. So we got a duplicate of this. I'm going to go back so you can see how I'm in bubble anim now. I'm going to go back to bubbles all. And I'm going to call this one bubble 1. And I'm going to get rid, or bubble 1 anim maybe, better. And I'm going to get rid of these 2 layers. So now I have one bubble with all the animation happening in it, and it pops. After that, I can get rid of these keyframes. So Shift F5 is going to get rid of any extra keyframes. So I get this going. Oh, and it came off, and that's okay. So you can tell that it's not actually following the path, and the fact that I can see the path. So I'm going to go back in and set this up as a guide. Oops. Just when I copied the frames, the guide came off, and that's okay. So I'll move this up here. Get rid of that. Oh, geez. Don't get rid of that. And move that to the guide layer. Okay, there we go. So now I got my guide. Let's stop it here. And I can make sure that stuff's going to stay nice and neat and clean and get rid of any additional keyframes that I don't need. So Shift F5 to do that. There we go. So it's going kind of quick. Now, if I wanted to change this bubble, everything that's happening here, I can go in and change the color of it really easily to whatever color I want. You know, if you want maybe a green bubble is going to be a little bit more evil looking, possibly. Let's try that. And then we'll do a lighter green highlight. There we go. Alright. So when I go back out here, because I've changed the symbol once, all instances of that symbol have changed. And then I can go and color these green as well. There we go. So I've got one bubble. Now I want to make a bunch of bubbles. So I can add a bunch of additional layers. Oops. If your scenes come undone, just you can push them back towards the edge. So I got bubble 1. I'm going to copy this frame and I'm going to paste it here. And if I zoom out, oops, make sure you're on the negative, zoom out. So now I've got 2 bubbles. Now, I don't necessarily want them to be going at the same rate, so I can start one a little bit after the other one going. Okay. And the other thing that I can do is I can change the size of this one, so I can make it, oh, I don't want to edit in place. No, it just came out of the scene, so that's okay. Go back in. So now I'm in bubble all. Now I'm in the bubble anim. I just want to be in bubble all. Okay, so I got 2 going. Pop, pop. I want to make this one a little bit smaller. So I get 2 going. And add in the 3rd. Maybe make this one a bit bigger. Now, you see what's happening here, and I can make it a little bit different in shape as well too. Maybe not that much. What's happening is the center of this whole entire animation that's happening is actually up a little bit. And you can move the center, but the center is up here because that's where the center of the animation is. So what's going to happen is if I choose to make this larger or smaller, it's going to base it on the entire animation, and the center of that is here. So that's why I'll have to make it bigger like this. Now, there we go. So you can make a whole bunch of bubbles. Let's just repeat this. And if you get any additional extra spaces on there, Shift F6 will get rid of keyframes So now I got a couple of bubbles. If I want to, I'm going to lock these first bubbles that I made because I think they're good. And if I want to select multiple layers, because I'm just going to take these and kind of manipulate them. The third one over is edit multiple frames, and we'll take the slider again, and it'll select everything that's within here by drawing a marquee around it. So now I've got all three of them selected. I can move them up and over, or I could also flip them, transform, and I can flip them, well, not vertically, I'll flip them horizontally, so then they're not going to be all doing the same S-curve as they go up. There we go. So I got lots of bubbles going with just one bubble animation, and they're all pop. If you want to keep yours within the liquid, maybe we don't want to have it pop, so I could change that as well. So this would be the popping method. If they're coming out, you'll probably want the bubbles to come out of the liquid a little bit. But let's just say I don't want them to pop, and instead I could have them actually fade. So I'm going to get rid of the pop here with Shift F6, and I'm going to hit get a key here that will be blank so that there'll be nothing afterwards. And on this last frame, instead of having it pop, I'll just have it fade out. So how we do that is this motion tween will still apply to a fade out. So we can go to selecting the actual symbol that's on this keyframe. We go over here to color effect, and we go to alpha. And we just turn the alpha all the way down to 0, so it's totally transparent. And when we go back, we can see it fades as it gets to the top. Now, if it's fading a little bit too fast, as we can see here that it kind of is, what we're going to do is, instead of doing the alpha right on the end, I'm going to actually switch this up. So I select it again, put it back to 100. I'm going to put a little keyframe in the middle as an in-between. So just hit F6, and it'll create its own in-between in the center where you need it to go. Now, instead of getting invisible from right from the start, it'll only start getting invisible from this midpoint to here. So then I can apply the alpha to it. And there we go. So it'll start going up and then disappear. Now that I've applied it to 1, if I go out here to bubble all of my bubbles will be fading now. You can have it happen as a cycle. Now, I want to get these to keep repeating. Let's go back up to scene 1. And if we extend the timeline out here, well, if we go inside, let's see how long this goes to. So it actually only goes to 44 frames, or 1.8 seconds. So remember 44. Now if I go back, no wait, sorry, I want to go inside, it's not 44. Okay, so sorry, actually inside the bubble all, it only goes to 19, okay, 8 seconds. So when I go outside, this has stopped here, but it'll continue playing and repeating over as far as I put the timeline. There we go. So there's our little bubble cycle going up. Now, next you're going to want to put it within the container or whatever object that you have the bubbles coming into. Okay. So we're going to do also a mask. So let's say that you have a nice beaker. Let's do some sort of circular kind of beak and have it coming out of that. Okay. And I'm actually just going to erase these out because I don't want to get rid of the total edge. So here's my beaker. change it to a black line, and I will create a little bit of a thicker outline to it so that it matches. There we go. Okay, not too bad. So you can see when I zoom in though, the issues with adding the line weight just on the side as opposed to creating a silhouette and then expanding it in the back, so you get some weird things happening with the line work here, but that's okay. It's not super distracting. So we got our vessel, and the next thing we want to do is possibly have some liquid in it that's going to be moving. So let's animate this liquid moving. So we got our bubbles, and I want to try to make them fit within this a little bit better. Oh, get skew, that's okay. Just edit, undo. Okay. Oh yeah, sorry. You don't want to transform it. I want to use the selection tool to move it. We'll put our bubble in here. Now, maybe a little bit bigger. Or maybe a little bit smaller. So you just play around with it. I want them to start as if they're a little bit outside. There we go. I think that's pretty good. So the next thing I'm going to show you guys is a shape tween. So this is really fun. We use the paintbrush, and we're going to just draw right outside of here. Okay, so we're going to draw this shape that's kind of wavy to start with, and I'm going to fill it in with the paint bucket. So we got a shape here. The next thing I want to do is I want to create another shape, and I'm going to still use my use the onion skinning. I'm going to just shut the bubbles off for now, and I'm going to make this into a solid color just so I can see what's going on here, and I can change the color afterwards, no problem. So there's my shape. And I'm going to switch the alpha back up to 100 so it's easier to see when I got onion skin on. Why is this not showing? Okay, there is some glitches with the CS4 where sometimes it won't let you see using the onion skinning, and it's just a little glitch. If you click around and lock your other layers so that this is the only one showing and do a couple things, it'll glitch back on so that you're able to see it. So don't worry if you're looking at that. It's something with CS4 that I believe they fixed in CS5. Now that I have my shape here, I'm just going to do another wave, maybe alternately. And it doesn't matter that I'm going out, because what I'm going to do is after I'm going to mask this stuff. So we'll fill that in. And then I can take this, and I could make it whatever color I want. So nice crazy lime green stuff here. Now, the next animation that I'm going to do is I'm going to right click, and instead of classic tween, which is what we did before with the path, I'm going to do a shape tween. Now the shape tweens, you can only do a shape tween to an actual physical painted shape. It can't be done to a symbol. So classic tweens are used for symbols. We'll get into, we may get into motion tweens next term, but classic tweens are what we're going to use for today with symbols, and shape tweens are for use with just painted shapes with no lines. Okay, so we're going to create a shape tween, and as you can see, the other thing that happens is with this tween, it's going to be green. Now, let's see what craziness happens here. Okay, so there's a bit of craziness. That's okay. What we can do with the shape tweens is we want to add some shape hints to it. because what will happen is this is just the computer calculating the best way to move from this shape to this shape. So a lot of the times it'll calculate it in a weird way that's not exactly what you want, and that's okay. And we're going to go to Modify, Shape, and add a shape hint. So we've got a shape hint here, and it's in red. So we can position him up here on the very first frame. When we go to the second frame, there's another little A. I'll put it up there around where we want them to go. So once I put it where it needs to be, it's going to turn green. Let me zoom in on this a little bit more. Okay, so I can go to View, Show Shape Hints. The first one, now that I've gone back after it was red, it's turned yellow. And the second one is turned green. They first both started out red. So that's how I know that they're locked in and set. Okay. Now, when I test it, because I'm telling it to make sure that this goes to that this A lines up with this A, now my shape is a lot better. Okay. So I want to do this. So I got my liquid kind of moving, maybe possibly in kind of a weird way. We can just have it go even slower by extending out the timeline, or we could have it go faster by shortening the timeline. Okay, now it's just going into one little curve here, but what we can do is go back to the next curve and then add the shape tween to it. Now this one still has a shape tween on it, and that's why we're getting this dotted line because there's no other keyframe for it to go to, so nothing's going to happen. So we want to get rid of that by removing the tween. So we right click on it and remove the tween, and there it goes, it's gone. Now we'll do the shape hint again here, and what will happen is we have to add a shape hint to this first one and then to the second one, and that's how the shape hints work. So they have to be on a first keyframe and a second keyframe. So you wouldn't be able to add the shape hint here. We have to add it on this keyframe. So I go to Modify, Shape, Add Shape Hint. So I get another A. I can put it over this A again, or I could try it over here, and there'll be another red one here. I can put that one there, just so it doesn't get too confusing, and that's not too bad. And as you can see on the second frame, this one is yellow because it's the first key of the hint that I'm doing, and then this one is green because it's the second key of the hint. So it'll go back. Now, I want my bubbles to go over the liquid, obviously, so I can see them. And I can have my liquid moving, and I can just Control Alt C to copy these. And all I'd have to do is keep pasting them. Now, or, it's even better, once I have this going once, let's just turn it into a symbol within itself, and then that way it'll just keep repeating. So, get rid of everything, got just my liquid. I'm going to zoom out a bit, and I'm just going to do what I did before, just create a symbol by making a mark, and hitting X, and I'm going to call it liquid. Make sure it's a graphic, and then I'm going to select all of these keyframes, Control Alt C, and I can go into this new symbol now, edit in place, and then Control Alt V will paste them. Now my shape hints seem to have gone. Let's see if they're, oh, they just moved. So they've stayed in the same spot, but because I've pasted it in within here and had the symbol up, they've kind of moved, but that's okay. So this is a good practice in shape hints. My A is back here, so I'm just going to move it back up, and I'll move that other up, A up there. My second A was here, so I'll move that over there, and I'll move the second one here, and let's just make sure that it's working. Not bad. Something weird is happening here, though. Let's try this. Just moving it slightly. There we go. Pretty good. So these shape hints, it's just a hint to the computer to say make sure the A goes to A, and for that computer to calculate that, it makes it a little bit more difficult for it, so it'll usually come in line with what you want, with a matter of 1 or 2 shape hints. There we go. Now I'm going to get rid of this extra. And we'll label this liquid as well. Oops. Then I'll go back out to scene 1. I'm going to call this liquid, and I'm done building it. And I'm going to get rid of this additional layer. And I want to make sure that my liquid's going to go in the bottle. And I got my bubbles going over top. Pretty good. Okay. Now, it's weird though. Everything is, you know, outside of the bottle here. That's crazy. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a mask. We're going to select a new layer, and we're going to call it vessel mask. Now what we want to do is we want to create a mask that's going to be representative of the inside of this bottle. We don't want any liquid to be seen outside of the bottle. I traditionally do masks in red, and that's just only because that's how they do it in Photoshop, and then that way I can always know that if it's red, it's a mask normally. Now you can put an alpha channel so it's see-through if you wanted to, so that you can see the stuff through the mask. But it doesn't matter if it's solid, that's fine, it's still going to work. It's just the fact that there's painted substance here. So we're going to just select the painted stuff, and since nothing's going to be seen up here, I'm not going to worry about it too much, but I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to get it out of here, and I'm going to paste it in this new vessel mask layer. So now I have a layer that's just this mask, that's just this painted shape. Now, if I take this mask and I use it, or take this layer and I right click and I go down to mask, what's going to happen is it's going to create this little design with a pattern underneath. Where the pattern is what you're going to see. So for my bubbles, I no longer see the bubbles, and you can see how they're kind of forming a line on the bottom where they would be coming out of the vessel. They're no longer going to be outside of the vessel. Now, it's done that for the bubbles, and then for the liquid, I just take it and drag it up. So now it's going to be the liquid as well, so we can only see the liquid within the bottle. And there you go. So there's your bubbles and liquid, and you can play it as long as you need to for your pan by extending out the timeline.